Hey guys, my name's Rory, and today I want to talk to you about how I get the footage coming out of my Panasonic Lumix S5 looking like this. To this.
Those closest to you seem so far away, but it's them that we need the most every day. There's so much to do, but too little.
So if you're new to the channel, I do a lot of videos around the Panasonic S5, but I also do videos about wedding videography, commercial videography, and a lot of travel stuff as well. So if you're into any of that, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell down below so you don't miss out on any of the videos. But yeah, this video, basically I want to give a quick rundown on how I color grade my log footage coming out of the Panasonic cameras. Obviously, everybody has a slightly different way of color grading. This is my way of doing it quickly so I get a really fast turnaround, but I also want to be really accurate with it. Color grading is actually the part of the process that I enjoy the most. So I just want to give you an overview of what I do with that. So this information will be relevant no matter which camera you're using. Obviously, I use the Panasonic cameras and I shoot in Vlog in those to maintain the best dynamic range. But if you're using Canon or Sony, this information will be good for you as well. I use Final Cut Pro to do all my color grading. You can do the exact same things I'm doing here in Premiere Pro as well, using Lumetri Color. DaVinci Resolve is a little bit more complicated, editing with nodes and the like. You can do a fair bit more with that, but it does take a lot more time and it is a lot more complicated. So tons of videos out there on how to do color grading with DaVinci if you're interested, but if you want a really quick turnaround to get some really beautiful colors, this is the way that I personally recommend to do it. So yeah, let's just jump in and have a look. Alright, so we've just jumped into Final Cut Pro here now, and I've got my color editing workspace open, and I've popped a few clips from a few various weddings in here. As you can see, they're all shot in logs, so they all look quite flat at the moment. We're going to go through each of them one by one, talk about the different ways to do it. Basically, there's 3 steps that I do in each one. The first one is I move the color from a log color into a Rep 709 color space. The next thing I do is I color correct, and finally I'll color grade. I guess I'll just explain what you're looking at here in case you don't know. On the left hand side here, you've got 3 graphs. Your first one is your Vectorscope. Now what your Vectorscope does is it shows you where your colors lie. You can see you've got red, magenta, blue, cyan, green, and yellow here. With these lines here, the further out they go, the more saturated they are, and whichever direction those colours are pointing towards, that's what the colour is. So you can see there's quite a bit of red there, and that's obviously because of that red helicopter in the background. The second thing that you have here is, actually I'll explain the bottom one first. This one is your Vectorscope. Now this one is your waveforms, not your Vectorscope. So in the Rep 709 color space, whenever light hits the sensor on your camera, it sends a voltage to basically the brain of the camera, which tells it what color and how bright to make each pixel that's on the screen. And this shows up here in this waveform. So anything at 0 here is absolute black, anything at 100 is absolute white, and everything in between is the colors that you want on the screen. Normally your skin tones you want around the middle here, around your mid-tones. Obviously the black jackets on these guys should be down around 0, and that white sky up there should be up around 100. And then finally you've got your Rgb Parade, which is basically the same as this waveform, but it's separated into red, green and blue. You use this to determine what your white balance should be. So excuse me while my computer tries to take off here. But yeah, so you use this to determine your white balance. So ideally you want these 3 to all line up. Just to explain a bit, I've just got a complete grey screen here. Now as you can see, this grey sits just under 50, and because all these lines match up, it is actually white balanced. If I jump into the colour wheels here, and if I was to basically increase it, you can see that that line just moves up. If I make this absolutely white, it'll sit at around 100. And if I was to drop it down to be absolutely black, it would sit around 0. If I move this back to the middle, you can see if I change this this temperature slider, which is your your yellow to blue slider. If I move it one way, you'll see that gets more blue, and this graph goes out of a line. You'll see the blue section here actually moving up. And if I go the other way, you'll see the red section moving up as it becomes more yellow. Same with the tint. If I was to go back towards the green, it becomes more green. And if I go back towards magenta, it becomes more magenta. And you can see that in that Vectorscope as well. As I move it backwards and forwards, there's that tiny little white dot that's moving backwards and forwards between green and magenta. So basically, these are the things that we want to manipulate in order to make our footage look really good. You've also got these color wheels, which I'll explain as we go along. You can use those to do some more fine-tune adjustments. So with the vlog footage, basically when you record in vlog, it compresses the image down so that you get a lot more dynamic range out of the camera. What that means is you end up with a really flat looking image because it pushes all the colors towards the midtones here. Now basically, the first thing we need to do is we need to move these clips into what we call Rec 709 color. So we need to stretch these waveforms out to make them basically have more contrast and more color in them. So the way we do that in Final Cut is we select the image, we go up here to the inspector panel, and then you need to make sure that down here you've selected extended. But yeah, in this camera LUT section, basically you download a conversion LUT. Now Panasonic have a free one, but the one that I prefer to use is from a company called Gamut, which is made by the guys at White and Reverie, who are some incredible wedding filmmakers. But the reason I use this one is it actually protects the skin tones really well, and that's what I want. So I'll select the Gamut LUT there, and you can see already that looks a lot better. Now, what I'll do is I'll go through all of these clips, I'll select them all, and I will do the same thing. I'll select the camera LUT, and I'll select Gamut Vlog. Now you can see already now these clips look a lot better, but they're still not perfect. So I'll go through each of them one by one. Some of these were shot very well. A lot of them have some pretty fundamental white balance errors and stuff, and I'll show you how to correct each of them. So the next step is the color correction. So basically what I'll do is I'll go back to my color curves here. Basically I want to get these highlights up towards 100, and I want to get the shadows down towards 0 in order to give my image the best contrast possible. So I'll grab the highlight slider, or highlights wheel, sorry, and I'll move it up towards 100, and I'll grab the shadows wheel and I'll move it down towards 0. Now, as you can see, this image is not correctly white balanced. Have a look at this. So if you're looking at this for a while, you'll look at it and you'll think, oh, that actually looks pretty good. But never trust your eyes, always trust the images here. Now, the reason is because your eyes will adjust to the image that you're seeing. Now, the midtones here, you can see all of this there and here, that's actually going to be the whites on their shirts. So we want those three lines to pretty much marry up. If you look at the sky and the shadows, the white balance is actually pretty good though. So we're going to grab the midtones here, in the middle here, and we're going to move that away from the blue. Oh, nope, sorry, we're going to move that towards the blue, just to get it to marry up a little bit. And we're going to move it away from the green a bit. There we go. Now that actually already looks a little bit better. It's probably a little bit pink, so we'll pull that back just a tad. And it's a little bit red, so we'll pull that, wrong way, we'll pull that back that way a little bit. And then the highlights we need to make a bit more red. So we'll pull that back up there, and now that looks a lot better. So we went from basically an image like this, which is, now that you look at it straight away like that, it's very green, to an image like that, which looks a lot nicer. This is a good starting point for our color grade later on. We'll go to the next one, and we'll do the same thing. We'll bring the highlights up. We don't want to clip those highlights, so we'll leave them there. We'll bring the shadows down just a tad. You can see the white on the veil here is just this part here. So if this is correctly white balanced, because that should be white, this part, and this part should all line up. But if we bring this down, you can see there's quite a big difference between them. So I'm going to put that somewhere in the middle there, and I'm going to adjust this temperature slider to bring them all together. We're probably going to take a little bit of the green out of this image just by doing that. And you can see like that already it looks a lot better. We'll bring these highlights up a little bit more again. Bring that back up to 100. Once again, you can see from the before, you can see that that's quite blue in the veil there. To after, that's quite white, looks really nice. Obviously we're close up on some skin now as well, so you can see in the Vectorscope here, this line here is the skin tone line. Now regardless of what your complexion is, how light or dark your skin is, you should lie on that line. The skin should lie on that line. You can see here there's a lot of colour just here on that line. That means that their skin is pretty well balanced and it's the right hue in the image. Now you can make their skin less saturated by bringing the midtones down like this. I mean, you can go really extreme and make them black and white, but it's actually pretty nice where it is. So I'm just going to leave that there. So we'll move on to the next image. Once again, you can see just by looking at it, this white sky in the background is not correctly white balanced. So we're just going to move the slider. We're going to make that blue go away a bit. And we're going to move out of the greens a little bit, and then we're going to adjust our highlights and our shadows. And that already looks a lot better. So these are all pretty easy adjustments to make. What we're doing at the moment is we're pretty much just trying to get these images to look natural. We're not doing anything too fancy yet. It doesn't even matter if they're not perfect, we just want them to look really natural. Now you can see here, here's a good example of where it looks like it's not very good, well white balanced, because this blue line's way up here, but that's actually the blue sky, so it's meant to be blue. The dress actually is lying in here, so those all along there, that's actually pretty okay. They're pretty well lined up, so I wouldn't be too concerned about any of that. We'll drop that down a bit. That image looks really nice. In the shadows though, you can see in the shadows they're not entirely white balanced, even though it's looking alright in the mid-tones. So we'll grab the shadows and we'll make it a little bit less blue, because that blue is a bit too high, and then that already looks a lot better. So from that to that looks good. I'm happy with that. This next shot, it's a really nice shot, but you can tell just by looking at it that it's way too yellow. So what we'll do is we'll drop these shadows down a little bit. We will move this temperature slider, because the entire image is too yellow, not just the highlights, until we get to about there. And you see really clearly all that blue comes back in the sky really quickly. Which is what we want. I mean, we might want to turn this image into like a really nice yellow sunset, but we want to start with a pretty standard image. So that looks good to me. Now this one here, we shot this as the sun was going down, and so the light was changing quickly, and we obviously didn't change our white balance as we were going along. So you can see that that's really, really pink. So we're going to take the tint of the entire image and we're going to slide it back towards the green, pull some of that magenta out of the image, and that looks a lot better. And then finally, we've got one last image here, which was actually shot pretty perfectly, so we don't need to make many adjustments at all with that. So yeah, happy with that. Now we've done all this, we're going to go through and we're going to do a creative edit. Now you can go through and do it manually. Say if I wanted to go in here and I wanted to make it like more of an autumn feel, I would go into the HSL tabs. I would select the hue dropper. I'd select a bit of green down here and I would just move it backwards or forwards. If I wanted to make it a little bit more autumny, I'd just move it more towards the orange, and then straight away you've got a more autumny feel. From the green to the, well, I mean, that's a bit pink, but yeah, you know what I mean. So you can do it manually like that, or this is where you will apply a LUT. Now in Final Cut, you need to put a adjustment layer on, which you have to download and do. If you get the Gamut LUT, then you can just pop it on like that. So we'll put that adjustment layer on. We will apply a LUT. And this is where you can be a little bit more creative. Now, there's LUTs all over the internet that you can download and put on. I am quite fond of the LUTs that White and Reverie make. So if we go like Dolce 3, obviously that's way too intense, dial it back a bit. So I actually quite like that just as it is. It's only a subtle difference, but often the more subtle the better. With something like this shot here, I know that the Russell Kent Nichols Mother Earth LUT is quite nice with these kind of tones. So yeah, you can definitely add a LUT like this on, which just kind of darkens it up, makes it a little bit more warm. But yeah, there's tons of different options when it comes to LUTs that you can use. But yeah, that's a really quick overview on how I do my color grading and color correction. Basically, it's not hard to do. It is important to try to spend a bit of time to get it right, but you don't need to spend a ton of time to get images looking really, really pretty. So yeah guys, that's it from me today. I hope you found that useful. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.